Leave me! Save yourself!
Humans never leave anyone behind.
Somewhere out past the edge of known space, there is a story that soldiers still whisper about. It is a story about an alien general, a woman feared by 1,000 worlds. Her armor was not just metal. It was fused to her body, locked, sealed, untouchable. For years, no engineer could open it. No weapon could crack it. No alien hand, no matter how strong, could pull it free. Then one day, a single human touched it, and it opened. Just like that. No machines, no weapons, no secret code, just skin against metal. Reportedly, this moment changed how an entire empire saw humanity. According to accounts passed down by those who witnessed it, the room went silent. Even the guards did not move. But the truth behind this goes far deeper than a strange coincidence. Here are 3 things you need to know before we go further. First, this armor was never meant to open for anyone. It was built that way on purpose. Second, the general herself did not understand why it happened. She was just as shocked as everyone else. Third, what this touch revealed about humans would change the balance of power across the galaxy. This is not just a story about armor. It is a story about fear, pride, and the one thing more powerful than both. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Long before the armor cracked open, there was a war. It was a long war. It lasted for years. Entire star systems burned. Cities turned to dust. Millions of soldiers, both human and alien, never made it home. At the center of this war stood General Valith. She was not human. She belonged to a species called the Threnai, a tall, sharp-eared race known for their cold discipline and long lives. Valith had fought in more battles than she could count. She had led fleets. She had crushed rebellions. She had never lost a single major battle in over 200 years. Her armor was famous across the galaxy. It was not ordinary armor. It was grown, not built. Threnai scientists had used ancient biometal technology to fuse living matter with alloy plating. Once it bonded to a soldier's body, it became part of them. It moved with muscle. It healed with skinches. It could not be removed by normal means. Valith's armor was special even among Threnai standards. It had bonded to her at a very young age, during a ceremony reserved for the most gifted warriors. From that day, the armor was a part of her, just like her arm or her leg. She trusted it completely. It had saved her life more times than she could remember. It had taken blows meant to kill her. It had healed wounds no medicine could fix. But it also had one flaw, one that almost no one knew about. The armor was designed with a fail-safe. If Valith were ever captured, or if her body were badly injured beyond saving, the armor would seal completely. It would lock every seam, every joint, every panel. This was meant to protect Threnai secrets. Enemies would never be able to study the technology inside. They would never learn how it worked. The problem came during the final battle of the war. Valith's fleet was ambushed near a quiet system called Doran's Reach. It was supposed to be a routine patrol. Instead, human forces struck first, using stealth ships that Threnai sensors could not detect. The battle was brutal. Valith fought bravely, but her flagship was heavily damaged. During the chaos, she was struck by a plasma blast meant to destroy the ship's core. The blast hit her directly in the chest. Her armor did exactly what it was built to do. It sealed itself instantly, protecting her heart, her lungs, and her spine from the blast. It saved her life. But it also locked completely. Every clasp froze. Every seam melted shut. The living metal hardened like stone. When the battle ended, Valith was alive. but she could not remove her own armor. Not the chest plate, not the shoulder guards, not even her helmet. She had survived the attack that should have killed her, but now she was trapped inside her own protection. At first, no one thought much of it. Threnai medics assumed the armor would loosen naturally within a few days, once the emergency response faded. That is how it usually worked. The armor was designed to release its lock once the danger had passed. But days turned into weeks. The armor did not budge. Threnai engineers tried everything. They used heat. They used cold. They used sonic tools designed specifically for biometal. Nothing worked. The armor stayed locked, as if it had turned to solid rock around her body. Vaylith began to grow frustrated, then worried, then afraid, though she never said so out loud. A general could not show fear, not even to her own soldiers. Word of her condition spread quietly through Threnai Command. No one wanted to admit that the great General Vaylith Corps, hero of 100 battles, was trapped inside her own war armor and could not get free. This was the beginning of a mystery that would take her far from the front lines, and closer to the one group she had spent her whole life fighting. The humans. 3 months after the battle at Doran's Reach, the war finally ended. A ceasefire was signed. Both sides were exhausted. Neither wanted to keep fighting a war that had already cost so much. As part of the peace agreement, Threnai and human forces began working together on shared research stations. This had never happened before. For years, humans and Threnai had only seen each other as enemies. Now, they were expected to work side by side. Vaylith was assigned to one of these joint stations, called Meridian Station 7. It floated quietly at the edge of a neutral system, far from any battlefield. Officially, she was there to help coordinate post-war logistics. Unofficially, Threnai Command hoped that maybe, just maybe, human medical technology could solve the problem their own scientists could not. Vaylith hated the idea. She did not trust humans. She had fought them for years. She had lost soldiers to their weapons, friends to their tactics. The thought of asking them for help felt like betrayal of everything she believed inches. But she had no choice. The armor still had not opened. It had been 3 months. Her body was healthy, but she could not remove her own protective shell. She could not properly bathe. She could not receive full medical scans. She could not even feel her own skin against open air. It was, in a strange way, a kind of prison. On the station, she met a human engineer named Ethan Cole. He was young for his position, only 26 years old, but he had a reputation for solving problems that stumped older, more experienced engineers. He specialized in materials science, particularly strange alloys and biological metals that did not behave like normal matter. Their first meeting was awkward. Vaylith walked into the research bay with her usual cold expression, arms crossed, expecting to be met with fear or resentment. Instead, Ethan barely looked up from his workstation. He was studying data from an old Threnai supply ship, mumbling notes to himself. "You're the general with the stuck armor," he said, without looking up. Vaylith stiffened. "I am General Vaylith Corps." "Right," Ethan said. He finally looked at her. "Sorry. Long day. Mind if I take a scan?" She almost refused, but something about his casual tone, no fear, no hatred, just curiosity, made her pause. She nodded once. Over the next few days, Ethan ran scan after scan. He asked Vaylith strange questions. What did she eat before the battle? How long had the armor bonded to her skin? Had she ever been injured in that exact spot before? Vaylith found his questions annoying at first. She was used to Threnai engineers who worked in silence, who treated her like a weapon to be repaired, not a person to be understood. Ethan was different. He talked to her like she was simply a puzzle he wanted to solve. Not because she was a general, not because she was dangerous, but because the problem itself fascinated him. Slowly, without either of them noticing at first, something began to shift. Valeth started answering his questions honestly. She told him about the battle at Doran's Reach. She told him how the armor had saved her life, and how it had also trapped her since that day. Ethan listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He did not act shocked or afraid, even when she described things about Threnai weapons that could have been used against his own people. One evening, after another failed attempt to loosen the chest plate using human-designed heat tools, Ethan sat back and rubbed his eyes. "It's not a technical problem," he said quietly. Valeth frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean the armor isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was built to do," he looked at her. "It thinks you're still in danger." Valeth stared at him. No Threnai scientist had said this before. They had only focused on the metal itself, on its chemical structure, on its resistance to heat and force. Ethan was looking at it differently. He was looking at what the armor believed, not just what it was made of. This idea would change everything that came next. Ethan's theory was strange, but it made sense the more Valeth thought about it. The armor was not just metal. It was alive, in its own way. It had sensors woven into its structure that could read emotional signals, heart rate, stress levels, even fear. Threnai scientists had built it that way on purpose, so it could react instantly to danger, faster than any conscious command could be given. If the armor still believed Valeth was in danger, it would never release its lock. Not through heat, not through force, not through any outside tool. The only way to open it would be to somehow prove, to the armor itself, that the danger had passed. But how do you convince a suit of living metal that its owner is finally safe? Ethan spent days researching. He studied old Threnai texts translated into human language. He spoke with Threnai historians who had joined the peace talks. He learned that the biometal used in high-ranking officer armor was bonded during an ancient ritual, one that involved trust, not just biology. According to Threnai tradition, the armor was not simply installed. It was earned. A young warrior had to prove their courage, their loyalty, and their emotional stability before the armor would fully bond to their body. This was why officers like Valeth trusted their armor so deeply. It was not just protection. It was a symbol of who they were. Ethan found something else buried in the old texts, something even Threnai scholars had mostly forgotten. The armor bonded not only to the wearer's body, but also, in some strange way, to their sense of safety. If a soldier's trust in their own survival was ever badly shaken, especially during near-death combat, the armor could enter a permanent defensive state. It would not release, Ethan explained, until the wearer's own mind and body signaled true safety again. Not fake calm, not forced relaxation. Real, deep safety. Valeth found this hard to accept. She was a general. She did not allow herself to feel unsafe. She had trained her entire life to stay calm under pressure, no matter the danger. But Ethan pointed out something she had never considered. "Maybe that's the problem," he said. "You've spent so long training yourself to hide fear that your body doesn't know how to admit when it's actually scared." Valeth did not respond right away. His words struck something deep inside her, something she had buried for years. The truth was, since the battle at Doran's Reach, she had not felt truly safe. Not once. Even in peaceful meetings, even during quiet nights on the station, part of her mind was always braced for another attack. Another loss. Another failure. She had survived, but she had never truly processed how close she had come to dying. Ethan suggested something unusual. Instead of trying to force the armor open with tools, they should try something completely different. They needed to find a way to help Valeth's body genuinely feel safe again, and see if the armor responded on its own. It sounded almost too simple, too human, in a way that made Valeth uncomfortable. Threnai culture valued strength above emotional expression. Admitting fear, admitting vulnerability, was seen as weakness, especially for someone of her rank. But she was out of other options. Reluctantly, she agreed to try. Ethan did not use complicated machines for this part. He used something much simpler. He asked her to talk about the battle, about what she remembered right before the plasma blast hit her, about what she feared most in that moment. At first, Valeth gave short, guarded answers, but over several sessions, something began to loosen inside her, long before anything loosened on the outside. She spoke about watching her ship's crew scramble in panic. She spoke about the moment she thought she would die, and how, in that instant, she was not afraid of death itself, but of failing the soldiers who trusted her to lead them home. Ethan listened without judgment. He did not treat her pain as a flaw. He treated it as something real, something worth understanding. Slowly, day by day, something in Valeth began to shift, long before the armor did. Weeks passed. Valeth's armor remained locked, but something else was changing. She found herself looking forward to her sessions with Ethan, not because she expected the armor to open, but because their conversations gave her something she had not had in years, a space where she did not have to be the fearless general. Other Threnai officers noticed the change in her. She seemed calmer, less rigid. Some worried this meant she was losing her edge as a commander. Others, quietly, thought she seemed more like a person again. Meanwhile, tension on the station began to rise from an unexpected direction. Not everyone on Meridian Station 7 supported the peace agreement. A small group of Threnai officers, still bitter about the war's losses, saw the joint research program as a disgrace. They believed working with humans was a betrayal of Threnai pride. One of these officers, a sharp-tongued commander named Dramatized, began spreading doubt about Valeth's condition. He suggested, quietly at first, that perhaps the human engineer was manipulating her. Perhaps this was some kind of human trick to weaken Threnai command from the inside. Valeth heard these rumors. Part of her, the old, guarded part, wondered if he might be right. She had trusted so few people in her life. Why was she suddenly trusting humans she had known for only a few months? She confronted Ethan about it directly, testing him the way she tested every soldier under her command. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked one evening, arms crossed, her tone sharp. Ethan did not flinch. "Because it's an interesting problem," he said. Then, after a pause, he added, "And because you deserve to feel safe again. Everyone does. Even generals." There was no hidden trick in his voice. No calculation. Just honesty. Something about that honesty cut through Valeth's doubts more than any argument could have. Still, Dramatized's accusations grew louder. He requested a formal review of the joint program, claiming it was a security risk. Threnai High Command, still nervous after the long war, agreed to send observers to Meridian Station 7. This put pressure on both Valeth and Ethan. If the review found any reason to suspect manipulation or misconduct, the entire joint research program could be shut down, and Ethan could be sent away, back to human territory, mid-investigation. Valeth found herself, for the first time in years, afraid of losing something that had nothing to do with battle. She began to realize that her trust in Ethan was not about weakness. It was about choosing, deliberately, to let someone in, despite years of training that told her not to. One night, just before the Threnai review team was set to arrive, Valeth requested one final session with Ethan, privately, away from official reports and observers. She told him everything she had never said out loud before. About the crushing weight of command. About the soldiers she had lost, whose faces she still remembered clearly. About the quiet fear that maybe she was not as strong as everyone believed her to be. Ethan listened, as he always did. But this time, he also shared something of his own. He told her about losing his older brother during the war, a soldier who never came home. He told her how he had thrown himself into engineering afterward, partly to escape his grief, partly hoping that maybe, one day, his work could prevent that kind of loss for someone else. For the first time, Valith understood that Ethan was not simply solving a puzzle. He was, in his own quiet way, trying to heal something broken in both of them. That night, sitting together in the dim light of the research bay, something changed. Valith felt, for the first time since the battle at Doran's Reach, something close to real peace. And then, without warning, it happened. The room was quiet. No machines were running. No tools were in use. Ethan reached out, gently, to check the readings on the small sensor pad attached near Valith's collarbone, a habit from their many sessions together. As his fingers brushed against the edge of her chest plate, something changed. A soft click echoed through the room. Valith froze. Ethan froze too. Slowly, for the first time in over 5 months, a thin seam along her chest plate loosened. Not much, just slightly, but it was more movement than any tool, any heat source, any Threnai engineer had managed to produce. Valith looked down at her own armor in shock. Ethan stared, speechless. "Did you feel that?" he asked quietly. Valith nodded, unable to speak for a moment. They called in a Threnai medic immediately, careful not to disturb whatever fragile process had just begun. The medic ran scans and confirmed what Ethan already suspected. Valith stress signals, the deep, underlying ones the armor had been reading since the battle, had finally dropped to a level the armor recognized as true safety. But there was something else, something even the medic could not fully explain. The armor's sensors, designed originally only to read Threnai biological signals, had also picked up something new, a calm, steady human presence nearby, one it had learned, through repeated contact, to associate with safety rather than threat. In simple terms, the armor had learned to trust Ethan's presence almost as much as it trusted Valith's own emotional state. Over the next several days, with careful, patient sessions, more seams loosened. Slowly, piece by piece, the armor Valith had worn locked for months finally began to open. It was not one dramatic, instant reveal. It was a gradual process, each small release met with quiet relief rather than sudden triumph. When Draza Ven and the Threnai review team arrived, expecting to find evidence of manipulation or wrongdoing, they instead found something they did not expect. A genuine medical breakthrough, made possible not through force, but through trust built slowly between two people from different worlds. Draza's accusations lost their weight almost overnight. Even the most skeptical Threnai officers could not deny the data in front of them. Valith's full recovery took several more weeks. Eventually, her armor opened completely, allowing proper medical care, proper rest, and, for the first time in a long while, a full night of undisturbed sleep, without metal pressing against every inch of her skinches. The story of what happened on Meridian Station 7 spread quietly at first, then more widely across both Threnai and human territories. It became, in a strange way, a symbol of the fragile new peace between their two peoples, proof that healing, real healing, often required more than just technical skill. It required patience, honesty, and the willingness to let someone new earn your trust. Valith and Ethan continued working together long after her armor opened, though their partnership had changed into something neither of them could have predicted at the start. And somewhere, deep in Threnai archives, a new note was added to the ancient texts about biometal armor. That trust, it seemed, was not limited by species after all. Here is the twist that even HFY scientists did not expect. The armor was never designed to recognize humans at all. HFY engineers built it exclusively to read HFY biological signals. According to later research, Ethan's calm presence should not have registered with the armor's ancient sensors in any meaningful way. And yet it did. Some researchers now believe this suggests something deeper. That safety, real safety, is not something the armor measured by species or biology alone. It measured consistency, patience, steady presence over time. In other words, the armor did not open because a human touched it. It opened because someone, regardless of where they came from, finally helped Vaylith feel safe enough to let her guard down. This idea quietly reshaped how both HFY and human scientists studied biometal technology afterward. For Vaylith, the truth was simpler. For the first time since the war, she was not just a general hiding behind armor and duty. She was, once again, simply herself. If this opened your eyes to how trust can break through even the strongest defenses, wait until you hear the next story. Let's recap what made this story so powerful. An ancient armor that no weapon, no tool, and no engineer could open, finally opened not through force, but through trust. A general who spent her whole life hiding fear had to learn that admitting vulnerability was not weakness at all. And an unlikely friendship between a human engineer and an alien commander quietly reshaped how two entire civilizations saw each other. This is what HFY storytelling does best. It shows humanity's quiet strengths, patience, empathy, and genuine connection, standing just as powerful as any weapon or army. If this story pulled you in, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next HFY Sci story. These stories come out regularly, and each one explores a different side of humanity's place among the stars. Drop a like if Vaylith and Ethan's story moved you. It genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more listeners who love these tales as much as you do. For those who want deeper, exclusive HFY content, character breakdowns, and early access to upcoming stories, check the link in the description to join our community newsletter. And now, here's a question for you. Do you think trust can break down barriers stronger than any weapon in real life, just like it did in this story? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.